All right. This meeting is being recorded. I just started the recording. So good morning, everyone. This is our February meeting, February 12th. Is everybody doing good with the snow? We had a lot of snow over the weekend. I know we were all here moving snow, making sure the bus lot was all cleaned out. A lot of ice, putting down a lot of salt. But our last meeting was held on January 15th, and Steve Marcotti and Chad White with Goodyear and Warren Tire, they put on the presentation, and it was a pretty good presentation. It's a lot of with the EV buses and the difference that they're making on tire consumption. So one of the things that they said was that the torque of the EV bus, along with the weight, is causing an issue. They said that they're using soybean oil in the tire design to try to make them last longer. They received grants to fund research. They're trying to figure out this problem. They said that the tires are actually getting 40% less life. So you put the same tire on a regular diesel bus, and you're getting a lot more distance out of it than you are with the EV bus. And he said that that's a big issue and it is unacceptable. And they're looking for districts to test these tires out when they do it. So I'm going to be in contact with them. We want to be part of the solution here and try to find out a compound that will work on the EV buses and get us the longest life that we can. They're monitoring tread to identify ways to improve the tires. They provide retreading. This is right from Goodyear. And they're having a Unicircle, which is their version of retreading. So there's no seam in the middle. It's just a round retread that is put over the casing and it's fused on there. So that's, I guess, saving a lot from what he was saying. That meeting was recorded and it is on our YouTube channel. So definitely you can watch that one again. I shared it with everybody. I can share the link again. There was a lot of good information on it. He also said that the mud and snow tire versus the 3-peak tire, the 3-peak is going to become the standard industry standard instead of the mud and snow tire. And I know a lot of people had questions. He answered a lot of them. And it was just a learning process. We're all doing this together. So does anybody have anything with the EV updates? Anybody who's running EV buses? I know our buses are consuming a lot more energy than they were. They during the winter, the heaters are that's our biggest issue. That and getting parts for them. If you think of anything as the meeting goes along, please we'll wait till the end of the meeting and you can bring it up then. Today's presenter is going to be Jeremy Johnston with New York Bus Sales, and he's going to be presenting on the Bluebird electric bus, all the changes and any updates that they've got since last year. So that being said, go ahead, Jeremy.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try and share my screen quick, so bear with me 1 second. How's that? Can everybody see that?
Yep. I can see it.
I'm Jeremy Johnston with New York Bus Sales. I think I did that presentation last year on the same topic. I know that everybody's seen the EV presentations over and over. We don't have a lot of changes, but the ones that we do have are fairly significant. So we'll go through, listen, any questions along the way, just let us know. This first screen is just our team that's there to support it. Everybody knows that this electric bus transition, and even any transition for that matter, is getting a little bit more complex. It's not send in a purchase order and get a bus, however many months later. There's now planning on chargers, infrastructure, and to Dan's point, making sure that we have the right chargers and they can actually heat and charge properly through the winter months. So this is just the big picture for New York Bus Sales and the team behind us. On the EV front, we still have everything from a 24 passenger all the way up to 81 in a type A, C, and D. Cummins is still our powertrain partner on the C and D, and EcoTuned is our partner on the type A side. EcoTuned is actually a QVM for Ford, just like our Roush partnership on the gasoline and propane powertrain. So everybody's probably seen this slide at some point before. We'll just kind of jump to the 2024 changes. So back in 2024, Bluebird was awarded $80 million by the Department of Energy to basically build this new state-of-the-art EV production facility right in Fort Valley, right across the street from our current facility. But on the flip side of that, Cummins was actually also awarded $75 million for their battery production facility out in Columbus. We actually got a chance to visit that facility. It is extremely impressive. It's basically all automated robotics. It's a sight to see, and we're going to start to try to put some of those tours together so that you guys can see firsthand what that battery production looks like. We also had a change in 2024. That change with the manufacturing is also actually going to free up some space on our Type C vision production platform. So what that new facility is going to do is take all the Type D transit style production and put it into the new facility. So our current facility will handle just Type C production. So it's going to improve timing, production, quality. I mean, all of those things for building one body in that plant as opposed to two. Also, in 2025, what we're going to see is actually an implementation of a 42 passenger vision and a 48 passenger vision, which will be listed on the state contract. Hopefully having that award here pretty soon. So we'll have a type A 24 passenger all the way up to a type D with an item 1, 2, and 4 on the contract. So a lot of changes, just that evolution. And the big change to that, honestly, is the battery packs. And we'll kind of talk about that in a minute. Other big news for us on the EV front, I don't know if everybody saw, Microbird is actually investing $38 million into a facility in Plattsburgh, New York. So obviously that's just, an hour and a half, 2 hours south of or north of where you guys are. What they're basically going to do is in that facility, manufacture out of the chute school buses, commercial buses, every fuel type is the strategy on that. What I'll do is I'll share this presentation afterwards if that's all right. And this link in here is actually just a video report that shows the investment they're making, some of the thought behind that process, and actually how they're transitioning into a current bus manufacturing facility. Everybody heard of Nova Bus owned by Volvo. They're exiting the Plattsburgh area, and Microbird is going to come in and hopefully start production in the May-June timeframe, which again is going to help us in terms of lead times, backlog, and everything else. So we'll stick with the Microbird front. There are some pretty significant changes on the EV side. Our standard battery pack used to be 88 kilowatt hour. Now we have options for 140, which is the new standard, or we can increase to a 175 with a range up to 200 miles. The thing to keep in mind, obviously, is as we add weight of batteries, it does impact that capacity. We can still get 30 passenger, but as we go to that 175 kilowatt hour pack, we're going to see a reduced capacity. And then we had air conditioning and other things. It'll get decreased over time. Some of the big advantages to this next generation is remote battery preconditioning. So you could actually access the system from your desktop and actually start preconditioning the batteries right from your computer, not having to actually go out and hit your ignition. We've got some powertrain upgrades. So no transmission on our second generation, where first generation had a 2-speed transmission. We're actually seeing more integration and diagnostics in that dash display. Just as we get more integrated, again, it's a QVM through Ford. So we actually have access to all of their PCMs. It's just now bringing it into one location in the dash for diagnostics and reporting. The other thing that we have is as we improve that and that removing the 2-speed transmission, we also have one pedal driving with improved regenerative braking. which means you're going to see a lot less wear on your brakes over time, just reducing kind of that PM schedule for brakes. And then lastly, which is a big advantage, is actually preheating the cabin from your desktop as well. Again, not having to go out, turn that ignition key. You can actually start heating the cabin from your desktop in the morning, which again will hopefully help, one, with range in the wintertime, and two, in terms of having to bring mechanics in or drivers to start buses early. Just another advantage long term. So let's jump into Bluebird a little bit. Even just what we've talked about from a production standpoint, when we first started back in 2016, we could actually build 4 buses in a week. Now with our transition to a couple of different production lines, we have a dedicated facility on site at Bluebird that just does chassis production. We actually have the potential now to build 20 electric buses per day. So that's a significant change for us. Again, going from 4 in a week to 20 in a day. We're currently not doing that just because the demand isn't quite there yet, but that's what we can get up to. This is one of the most significant changes that we've actually seen. Bluebird just announced our standard battery pack on a Type C and Type D is manufactured by Cummins. So that $75 million grant that they got to produce those batteries is now implemented into our full powertrain, which means that Cummins is our fully integrated OEM powertrain partner. They handle the batteries, they handle the thermal management system. They still don't manufacture the motor itself, but everybody's kind of using that TM4 as the industry standard. But they're also looking at a lighter battery, denser battery composition, obviously a higher battery capacity. We also don't see the need for an insulation package with this new technology. It does do AC and DC charging as standard. It does do V to G as standard. Again, it's produced right in Columbus. They've also changed our high voltage connection locations, and we'll kind of go into that here in a little bit, but they're now on the front and back side of the batteries, as you can see here at this end. And then also just a cleaner routing for all of our high voltage cables. So a lot of significant improvements with this change to that standard battery. With Cummins partnership comes their service network and diagnostic kits. So we're starting to see the evolution of the Cummins support that we can actually see, introducing some hardware to help diagnostics easier with some of those faults. So just here's a couple examples of that. This is an image of actually that change in location for battery mounting locations. It used to be for those MSDs, the manual service disconnects, were on the outsides of the frame rails. Now what we're actually doing is putting them on the front and back side of those, which kind of gives us a couple different things: better accessibility, but it also gives us the ability to hopefully put luggage boxes on those skirts where we couldn't in the past, only on the driver's side. With this change, we no longer have the need for a fuel or a coolant filter. So that used to be located right in front of that battery pack and kind of hung down a little bit low and was in the way. With this change, just one less thing to actually have to worry about. From a safety standpoint, nothing else changes in terms of our standard operating procedures. We're just going to go through this quick so we don't take up too much time. This is our 2nd generation air compressor that was implemented. No change to that, with the exception of a remote 12-volt disconnect, so that now we actually have a disconnect on the curb side and driver side. What we'll have the ability to do is, with a remote disconnect here, it would trip the switch for the 12-volt in the battery box. So in case of an incident, easy way to actually shut down that high voltage system, since it requires 12-volt signal to engage high voltage. No maintenance there either. No change in our propulsion system. As I mentioned before, it's that same TM4 motor that's a 6-phase. It's kind of the industry standard. It's been extremely robust, really minimal issues to this point. Drive motor itself, when we talk about maintenance, all it is torquing them every 20,000 miles and just making sure that everything is tightened up to specs. No change there. Propulsion motor, exact same inverter that we're using. This will just look a little bit different in terms of wire routing for high voltage, but again, no significant changes there. We made this power steering change probably a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. We actually went to a Cummins producer. Everybody can see this tag here. Cummins is really integrating the entire powertrain and the supporting hardware to make sure we don't see failures. And then they did change the reservoir itself for a little higher volume. But really no maintenance there, just checking levels. In terms of disablling the high voltage system, like we talked about, all of those same operating procedures we had before. Battery disconnect, now just the addition of the remote disconnect on the curb side in the air compressor. MSDs, same concept on this new battery pack. They're just slightly different, but still a two-stage release to make sure that those don't actually get released if they're hit by anything running down the road. High voltage module. This actually changes slightly in terms of the hardware for the new battery packs. Just working on getting that updated image. Location of all of this hardware actually changes a little bit as well. So what we'll do is as soon as we have the images, we'll actually get an update to the group and kind of send what that looks like moving forward. Because of this wheelbase configurations we now offer, it changes slightly based on the wheelbase because real estate changes for where we can put some of this hardware. But again, no maintenance on that side as well. Low voltage module. This is actually located up under the hood on a Vision. This basically handles our 24 volt, 12 volt circuits. This is also the area where our final release of that 12 volt signal to the high voltage is actually under the hood. So that's one of our ways to shut down high voltage. Again, this is where your engine serial number would be located for any diagnostics, warranty repairs coverage through Cummins. It's on that tag right on that panel. This is Cummins thermal management system. They've made a couple of minor tweaks to this system, but for the most part, still manufactured in that same building that their batteries are. Coolant pumps down below, 4 of them, then one up on the firewall. We'll talk about that refrigerant. So here's what those items or those pumps actually control for diagnostics. And then that canister for the chilled coolant. Now, keep in mind, chilled coolant is only used in battery cooling in case if we see a significant spike in temperature. Everything else is controlled with coolant that just flows through the radiator. Here's that cooling module. It's that fancy name for a radiator. It's the exact same radiator that we're using in our Ford powertrain. So again, not making things complicated or reinventing the wheel. Just trying to keep things as consistent and easy as we can. Our dash cluster is still the same. The only significant changes you really see are when we do some driver training, it's that efficiency gauge, making sure that we keep drivers as close to that yellow as we can, consuming energy, utilizing regenerative braking. All of our dash fault codes are displayed here. Once we get to the point, we actually have some of the fault codes listed in a cheat sheet that we can share, as well as a PM schedule for any of those components. But again, no significant changes here. And then we talk about that comparison. Again, no real changes. The only difference is coolant flush every 5 years. We don't have a filter anymore, so we don't need that coolant filter. That goes away. We're just getting more efficient as we go. And again, I don't want to take up too much time. I know that's an abbreviated version, but I also know that everybody is, we'll call it EV'd out. Any questions, anything else we can do to help support?
Jeremy, so did you say that you guys you're producing your own chassis?
Our chassis for Bluebird and the type C and D, yes.
C and D.
Yep. And we've been actually producing our own chassis for every fuel type since 2005, plus or minus, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay. And then when you're moving forward with these electric buses and you're utilizing Cummins, is their software going to work with like Insight, or is it a whole nother program?
It will work with Insight, but they do have some specific programming for the electric bus. There's actually a customer-facing version for diagnostics, so you can actually see over-the-air check engine lights, and you can get notifications directly. As soon as we deliver a unit, we take that engine serial number, associate a VIN number and bus number, and you can actually have a portal you guys can access just for diagnostics and GPS feeds.
Okay. And the smaller buses, the 24 passenger, you said you're coming out with one of those. Is that also going to have the regenerative braking on it?
It does. So this is now our second generation Type A, which does 24 and 30 passenger. Our first generation did have regenerative braking. Now what this second generation does is as we remove that 2-speed transmission, it gives us more efficient regenerative braking so we can actually utilize that one pedal driving, kind of like we're seeing in that transition with the electric car world. Just now seeing some of those things evolve into the school bus market.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Jeremy?
And again, while we're here, if there are any other Bluebird topics, anything that we can help, it's one of those things that if we don't know about it, we can't fix it. So if you guys are seeing things, let us know and we'll see what we can get with our OEM partners or suppliers and see if we can't fix anything that you guys are seeing.
Okay. John Hazelton.
Yeah, I have a question in general because we're all here and we're all on the same page. I'm not trying to throw stones at any dealer or manufacturer or anything, but with the stuff in the recent news with 2 in Canada and the recent ones in Massachusetts, has anybody heard any updates on what caused these fires in the buses recently? I saw there was they had fires in these buses, but they never come back and tell us what caused them.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that one. The ones in Massachusetts, those were Bluebirds. We did see that the flames were put out within an hour, which leads us to understand that wasn't a high voltage battery fire. If those batteries caught fire, it would have taken days to actually put it out. What the root cause of that was, I am not sure. I think it's still being investigated.
Okay, thank you. I know it was a different manufacturer in Canada, but I know they're all under the hood, nowhere near the main battery source or the large battery. So I was just curious on if anybody had any information on that.
Yeah, so even when it comes to battery testing, we have to reach certain ISO standards. So part of that testing is actually trying to light the batteries on fire, the high voltage batteries, that is. So our previous generation, we actually put accelerant on the batteries, put diesel on them to try to get them to ignite, and they wouldn't ignite. So we all know that if anything gets hot enough, it will catch fire. But it also shows with those ones in Massachusetts that if the body catches fire, we have time to actually put it out before the batteries catch. So if there were any positive that came out of it, I mean, that's helpful. But on the flip side, nobody likes to see any battery fires on a school bus.
Now, like our buses that use the lithium iron phosphate batteries, that they supposed to smolder more than burn. Is that something that your buses have? You spoke about the Cummins battery.
So yeah, so the batteries that you're utilizing are phosphate batteries. That's the battery composition we use in our Microbird product. And that new battery from Cummins, those are nickel manganese cobalt batteries. Again, just a different internal composition, but honestly, it doesn't make a difference. Once that chemical reaction takes place in the batteries, you're not going to put it out. You just need to wait it out until that reaction actually stops.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? If you think of any or you have any, please send them to me. I'll make sure that Jeremy gets them. All right. Well, we got a lot of notes on that one. Well, I want to thank you, Jeremy, for your presentation. And, it's always, we're just trying to keep everybody informed on these EV buses as we move along. Our next meeting is going to be held on March 12th, 2025. And we're going to be going over the international EV bus and the changes that they have since last year. The summer seminar will be held on July 17th. Setup will be on July 16th. So everybody will be getting the invites and the vendor letters, and the vendors can sign up. We're just waiting on rooms. Once we get the rooms ironed out, we're going to put it all together, and I'll send it out like I did last year. And then we can get moving on vendors. I know we have a few new vendors that want to be there this year. And so we're going to be working on that, and I'll definitely keep everybody in the loop. Does anybody have anything to add to today's meeting? Or any questions or anything?
Actually, Dan, if I can, you mentioned the summer seminar.
Yep.
As always, we do a training the day before.
Mhm.
So one, put that on your calendars, but two, if there are things that you guys see would like some training on as a group, let us know and we can try to make sure that we put that together. We also try to make sure that we don't do the same topics that the head mechanics does. So what this does is it gives us kind of 2 days of some solid training on different topics, just to make sure we're hitting all of those things that really make your lives a bit easier. So let us know if there's things that you want to see.
Yeah, and that'll be on the 16th?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's the setup day up. So that'll be, yeah, awesome. And then we're working on some presentations for during the meeting. If anybody has any recommendations or something that they would like at the summer seminar, please let me know. And we're looking at tires. We're and of course DOT will be there. So this is our show. It's all of us together. So if there's something that you guys want to see, please let me know. Is there anybody have anything else to add to today's meeting? All right, not seeing any. I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting. I want to thank you guys all for attending, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.